What? The live stream started with no hiccups and 2 minutes early. That's what? This can't be possible. That's not how this works. Oh, I need to turn the volume off there. That'll be an issue. Hello guys. I'm hoping you can see me. There's a delay, so it's always hard for me to see when we've started, and I'll just sit here awkwardly for a minute. There we go. Okay, we are on. This is kind of a miracle. It's a Christmas miracle. For sure. If you are unaware, the last, I think 3 weeks in a row, 2 weeks in a row, we've had problems where if I set or schedule a live stream, that link would never work. I'd always have to redo another one last minute, and we get started a half a minute late, and it was just drama filled and not fun. So tonight we are working in colored pencil as usual. I am working in polychromos and luminance. I have a Derwent drawing Chinese white. This guy who's amazing at getting just really nice opaque or opacity there. I'm also, when I do any fine details, I'm not sure if you'll see this in the video, but I just want to show you what I'm using to start with. Colored pencil titanium white and colored pencil touch-up texture. When I mix these two together, it is so perfect for getting the fine lines. A lot of the little details, the little white lines you're seeing in the leaves and in the hummingbirds, I used by that mixture, and I do have a link for that below in the video description. Along with, actually, I don't know if I told you what paper I'm using in the video description. If not, it's the Fabriano Artistico Extra White Hot Press 140-pound, name is way too long, watercolor paper. The hot press part is important. If you get the cold press, it's going to be very bumpy, and you're not going to get the same look that I have here. So we've already got, for those of you who are in chat, we have Kaneho giving everyone crap. That is usual. Just ignore him if it bothers you, but he kind of gets a free pass because we've just known him for a long time and we expect him to act like this in chat. He is just being a dork. He's not actually angry and bitter like he comes across. Actually, he might be, but we just pretend that he's not. Yeah, we'll go ahead and hit record now. Thank you guys. You guys know me well that I have a tendency to forget to do that. So we are working on the leaves. I've got the hummingbirds mostly done. I have a little bit of work left to do on them, but I will do that on camera, just not on the live stream later on. We're going to start focusing on the leaves, and it looks like I need to zoom in a little bit here. You cannot see that very well. Let me fix that really quickly. I thought I had already done this. How is the audio going? This is the new mic that I'm using right now. There we go. That should be better for you guys now. And scroll up. Let's see. And now, there we go, zoomed in. Okay, yeah, I'm really excited about the new microphone. I have to give a special thank you to those of you who are supporters over on Patreon. Your continued support is why I'm able to keep upgrading stuff, so you can actually hear me now. So, yay! Okay, so we are going to get started. I'm going to slide this over a little. It's actually kind of in a bad position for me. Oh, I'm probably sliding it too far off camera, and I can't tell. Okay, so what I'm going to start with is this area back here. Now, this is slightly out of focus, and in keeping this area blurred, that's going to help these leaves here to feel closer to you, which do have the higher detail. So what colors do I need? We're going to start with a fairly light green, it looks like, and a medium color there. That one probably not what actually, if I layer these two, it should work. If you have not noticed, I am not super picky about it. It's definitely got to be this color because this is the color I used on the other leaf. I don't remember what color I used on the other leaf. It's really not that big of a deal. I'm just going to layer until it looks how I want. Because of blending with the odorless mineral spirits, if I have a layer that I don't like, I'm not damaging the tooth of the paper. Everything's done with a very light hand. It is very easy for me to fix mistakes like that. So I don't stress myself out over this layer. You know, I used this exact pencil here and that exact pencil. It just needs to be fairly close. I forgot to put up my glassine, so let's go ahead and cover part of this, which will help protect the rest of my paper. So I'm going to start by blocking in where some of these shadows are. That is not a very sharp pencil. Let's fix that really quick. Yeah, is it super loud? Because there's actually a knob on here that allows me, although it's kind of hard for me to reach for it. I can turn down the mic if it is super, super loud. It's got all kinds of features. The directions said just start in the mid and go from there, so that's what I did. So starting on this guy, I've got a really light area here. What I'm doing is just blocking in my general colors, my lights and my darks. I don't really care, and actually that doesn't go there. We will use that. Actually, that may not erase very well because I think I used some odorless mineral spirits on it already. It's okay, it'll get covered. Sarah wants to know if I still use the Faber-Castell Aqua. I can never say that word. The water-soluble Faber-Castell pencils. I have not since the first time I used them, and I really want to. I was recently thinking about that because those are a lot of fun. I so enjoyed working with those. So I have not, but I want to. I have so many projects that I want to do that I just don't get to them all. So what I'm doing here with these leaves, they basically are abstract shapes. That's all they are. You can very easily feel overwhelmed, not know what goes where. You just want to copy the shapes that you're seeing on your reference photo. JPC13 Art wants to know if I decided on a name for the mic. I really liked one of the last suggestions, which was Mike Jagger, which I don't know why that made me laugh so hard. I also really liked Michelangelo, because off the play off Mike, that was a really fun one. But I'm leaning towards Mike Jagger right now. But I can never remember the names of things or people. So if you guys want to keep renaming it, I'll forget the current name soon enough, and we'll need a new name anyway. And if you are unaware of what I'm talking about, this is a continued conversation from Instagram last night. I posted a photo of the new mic and said he needed a name, so you guys have been helping me with that. Because I'm a crazy person. Don't tell anyone, though, because I don't think they'll let me record videos from the institution that they would probably put me in. Okay, so I've got an area here. You see I'm grabbing all my pencils. I've got an area here that I should have airbrushed, but I didn't. It is not a big deal. One of the reasons that I use Createx airbrush paint with the colored pencil versus something like ComArt. ComArt has a little bit more gloss. With the Createx, I think they do have a matte finish too, though. But the Createx one, besides just being convenient for me to pick up at Hobby Lobby, everywhere seems to carry that one, so it's easy to get if I run out last minute, but it will blend seamlessly. You're really not going to see where one area where the colored pencil and the airbrush ended. They look very, very similar, but having airbrushed the background, it saved a ton of time, first of all. I can't even imagine how long that background would have taken in colored pencil, but they just work really well together. And no, I don't know. I just find it to be a lot harder to get a background like that in colored pencil. So it's like, why not just use the airbrush? I know how to make that blend seamlessly and to save a ton of time. I'm glad to hear that the rest of you are as crazy as I am. If you wonder, if you're watching this live stream after when it's no longer live and you wonder who the heck I'm talking to, there's a chat that doesn't save it's not recorded, so you guys don't really see what the comments are, so it kind of sounds like I'm sitting here talking to myself. So I am using a little bit of odorless mineral spirits for the first layer of blending where my background needs to go into the other background. And you can see that lifted it off and now it stands out a lot again, but I need to let that dry and then I'll continue doing a few more layers until that blends in nicely. So I'll continue layering. I'm not being super careful with this, just knowing when I go through with the odorless mineral spirits, it's going to blend all of this seamlessly. Also, if you guys are moderators, I've got a couple of moderators here that help me so much. There is no way I could manage that and do the video at the same time. Their channels, if you want to check them out, they both have art channels. Valerie does these amazing wood burning work, and Joseph paints Digester would be the name. I think you're used to seeing him in the channel. And I've got links to both of their videos or their channels in the video description for this one. So definitely check them out. Warrior Potato on a Unicorn thinks I still need the beanbag promotion. I'm not doing the beanbag video. If you were here the last couple of weeks, I had mentioned I got some, there's a company that does these beanbags and they've contacted me to promote their stuff, and it just, I didn't feel it was a fit for the channel, but some of you apparently think it would be hilarious. Dominique says that brown leaf in the back right looks a little like a face peeking out. Really? I'm not seeing it, but soon enough, it's probably going to hit me and I'm going to be like, wow, you were right. And that's all I can see now. So I kind of want to try not to see it, because once you see something like that, it never goes away. You can see I'm layering a lot of different greens here for these colors. It's not something where it's like I have to find the one perfect color, but that one perfect color in the one perfect place, or else it's ruined. I'm going to layer and layer until I get the tones that I want. Karen Peters says, when you did the airbrush, how did you block off the actual drawing to get the fine detail? I used masking fluid for the edges, and then you can paint that on with a paintbrush, and if you look up Lachri and masking fluid, there's a video showing you how I do this. And then I used, because it was such a large area, I didn't want to put masking fluid on the inside of the leaves, I used Frisket. I just cut that out on the center there, and that protected the work really nicely. Oh, this is a whole mess of abstract shapes in here. I don't even know what goes where. I know this needs to stay light, so we'll put the white down now, and that will help protect the paper a bit. We've got another leaf back here. Now, all of this kind of looks like crayon until I come back through and start getting the fine details. Eric Draws wants to know if I know Jeff Watts. No, I do not. Although I'm so bad with names, maybe I do and I'm just not aware. That's entirely possible. So these leaves, a little backstory on these, I was told that, or my husband had left for work, and he mentioned that we were being invaded by ladybugs outside. I got all excited. I'm taking my camera out. And then I thought, because there's a trail near my house, or the apartment, I'm like, I can probably go get nature ladybugs, you know, not just on the side of the building. So I was very... JPC13 Art says I'm already basically free advertising for the beanbag company. No, because I didn't say who they were. But I was all excited about the ladybugs, so I go down to the trail, and there were no ladybugs out there. But the lighting, it was in the afternoon, and the lighting was so gorgeous out there that because I took my camera with me, Desmond and I went on a walk, and Desmond's my camera, by the way. I just walked around taking random pictures, and these leaves were so pretty, and I knew if I waited long enough, it was the only spot in the entire trail that I could find that had these leaves with these berries, and they were there by themselves, but in the dark. And I knew if I waited about an hour, it did take a while, for the light to get in the right place, it would be hitting these and bouncing off, and I'd get the light and shadow. So I waited for a long time before the light moved. And I walked back and forth on the trail. I'm like, these have to be, the single plant has to be somewhere else out here. Don't know what kind it is, but I'm like, it has to be somewhere. It wasn't. It was in the only spot, and it was just in the wrong area for lighting. But I'm really glad that I waited, because I think it's worth it. Eric Draw says, I heard that drawing like you write creates scratchiness. This is how I'm not sure what you mean by that, because I'm holding the pencil exactly how I do when I write. I may hold it a little bit more firm when I write, I'm not sure, but it's pretty much the same way. So I also got a few other leaves with berries that were really, really pretty while I was out there. So those will probably be sometime in the future I'll use those. But it's amazing some of the photos that you can find near your own home, or stuff you can get photos of for reference near your own home. Noah Spalding says, how do you store your brushes? I know you use a canvas organizer, but where do you buy it? Side note, my family still calls you Squeaky Voice Art Master Lady. My canvas brush holder comes from dickblick.com, and I think I might have that listed under the oil and acrylic painting supply list over on my website. I'm not sure if I do or not, but that's the only one that I found the really big holders for. You want to get big brush holders. Don't get the little set, because you will be surprised. You may think, oh, I've only got 10 brushes right now. Yeah, give yourself a few months and you will have a lot more. Guaranteed. So don't get the small sets. They're just a waste. Get the big set. Horsey Girl says that she thinks my dogs would confiscate the beanbag chair as their own. They absolutely would. The problem is I don't have any room for it. I'm kind of picky about how my apartment is decorated, and that would not fit at all with my style. And as much as the dogs would love that chair, I have no idea where I would put it. And they're big. I mean, even if I put them, normally I've got a dog bed in this back corner. I just move it for these videos because it makes it look kind of messy in here. It still wouldn't, it's just not practical for me. Don't tell the dogs, though. I think they'd be upset if they found out I was keeping a potential new bed from them. Dominique wants to know if I can turn off the autofocus. No, I can't. That's actually a downside with this specific webcam. It is a good one, but no, it doesn't have an option for that, unfortunately. And I'm not sure if there's an add-on I can use or something like that, but that was one of the things when I was reading reviews that it doesn't allow for. So yeah, that is getting fairly blurry, and I apologize for that, but not much I can do about that. Yeah, I've got a lot of you asking to turn off autofocus. I can't. There's just no way for me to do that. I'll look into seeing if there are any add-ons that work with it, but that is just something that this mic or this camera doesn't allow for. Although, you know what? Now that I'm looking at this, I'm not sure how much of this, what you're seeing, the blurry here is blurry. Well, okay, it is going in and out of focus, but it's not as bad as I first thought. Not great, but there we go. D Bull wants to know, what paints did I use for the airbrush background? That is Createx. Now look at the colors too in my hand right now. There are a lot of greens and even this gold color that I'm using to get this. It's, again, not just, and they're layering. It's not just one color in one area. Lots and lots of colors. I think one of the reasons that the camera too is having a hard time focusing is when I'm doing something that is very blurry, I think it irritates the camera. Because sometimes it definitely seems worse than others, and this is clearly one of those times. That manga girl wants to know how I think a mop brush would work with the Winsor & Newton pigment markers. They work okay. I actually like a brush that's a little bit more stiff with those markers, so soft but not, like, shorter bristles. I think that the the mop brush, I think, bends too much. But actually, I did use them for some effects, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. I haven't used them lately. So it would be something, and no matter what brush, if you wonder how something is going to work, try it. Don't spend too much time researching and trying to find out if it works for somebody else. Give it a try. See if it works for you. Because what works for you may not be the same thing that works for me. That doesn't mean one way is right or one is wrong. Yeah, it's looking like the blur is worse when I take my hand away from the frame. If I leave it in the frame, it doesn't blur. Okay, I will try to just keep my hand over here when I stop to talk. Although I have a feeling my arm will get pretty tired fast, but we'll see how long I can manage this. Here, we'll move this hand in frame while I move over here to grab another pencil. What did I move over here to grab? Oh, yellow. Is that helping at all, I wonder? Because it's kind of a pain. Let's see, I've got a section here that gets some yellow. Actually, that is the wrong one. This is the darker. The yellow will go here. So you can see it's not that big of a deal. Like, okay, I wanted yellow here. No one's going to know the difference. I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, let's see. This guy, this leaf. I'm just working in little ovals. And you can see it has that kind of grainy, gritty look. Well, you can see when it's in focus. It has a little bit of a grainy, gritty look. That does not matter. That's not going to stay. This is just an absolute disaster of shapes back here. It is really hard to figure out what goes where right now. Warrior Potato on a Unicorn wants to know what the studio assistants are getting for Christmas. Probably a lot of sweet potatoes, because that's kind of their favorite thing in the world. They have so many toys that it just doesn't matter anymore. There's a ridiculous amount of them. Their toys last a long time because they're not that destructive anymore. They were when they were young. Well, one of them was when she was younger. Barbara asked about my nails. They are not decals. They're actually nail stamping. If you look up Konad, K-O-N-A-D, nail stamping on YouTube, you will find tons of videos showing you how to do it. It's really fun, very, very easy, very fast too. I will have my nails, all of them done and stamped within, less than 20 minutes. Much faster than going and having them done. Although I've never actually gone somewhere to have my nails done, but just from seeing when friends did. Okay, I'm going to blend all of that out. My arm is actually getting tired from holding it up there. Going to blend that out with paint thinner. Whenever I dip the paintbrush into the jar of paint thinner, I dry the brush back off on a Viva paper towel so that I don't have it too wet. And this is the Mona Lisa Odorless Mineral Spirits. Gamsol works exactly the same. Really, any odorless mineral spirits that you find at your art supply store will work. I know of people who have used terpenoid and turpentine. I don't use those because they smell, even the ones that are supposed to be natural or odorless, they smell so bad. I just stick to the odorless mineral spirits. This gives me a decent base to work off of. Go ahead and blend that out. Sarah Makes Art wants to know if when not doing a review, when I'm working in graphite, do I usually stick with one brand of pencils for drawing, or do I use whatever pencil you feel like? I use whatever pencil I feel like. Normally, every graphite piece I've done lately has been a review of some sort, so I've only used the one type. But I would generally prefer to mix, to an extent, at least enough to use a mechanical pencil with my AN4B lead or some kind of lead for the finer detail. While the pencils by themselves can get detail, it is so much easier with that mechanical pencil. So now that I'm pretty much done with reviews of graphite pencils for a while, I do want to do one where I do like a single grape or cherry in all the different browns so we can kind of see them side by side. But yeah, I'll be back to kind of mixing some of mine together. My main two that I like right now are the Derwent, and that's important, the new Derwent graphites that are graphics, and the Faber-Castell 9000 series. I'm going to double check and just see if it's even an option within this studio, because that I don't know if I've looked at, and see if it lets me turn off autofocus. Let's just double check. Let's see. Let's see if this one makes a difference. I don't know if it was just... And it's still on. Yes. Okay. We will see how this works. Let me know. I changed something in the OBS video editor or video recording to see if that would make a difference. We'll see. Noah wants to know when you are going to see the Murloc painting. I am not sure. I have so many projects I want to get done. I was actually planning on doing the Murloc painting this week, but then this one I got all excited about when I took photos of the leaves. I had no intention of making this project until I saw the photos and thought, colored pencil, that would be perfect for this. So hopefully sometime in the near future. Kaneho says he can't say Dick Blick without laughing. Funny story about that, which might be mildly inappropriate. No, I don't think it's too inappropriate. I had a student when I was teaching her preteen daughters, and when I was telling her where to get, actually, I think it was the same thing. I think it was for the canvas brush holders. And because that was the one thing we could not get at the store I was teaching out of. And she was like, "Excuse me, what?" Yeah, that was funny to explain. She definitely misunderstood where I was telling her to check. So I'm going to start, this is dry enough now, I can start blocking in some details. Sarah wants to know if the glassine paper, that is this stuff here that I'm using to protect the paper from my hand, ever gets annoying or gets in the way. Yes, it does, because there are times I want to work here and then here, and I'm constantly moving it back and forth. It wouldn't be annoying if I was working flat. So if you are someone who is able to work flat, then that's going to be much less irritating for you. For me, yes, this definitely gets irritating at times. Carly wants to know if there is a chance of getting a video or list that focuses on unique colors in each of your sets. As someone who has all polychromos, wants to get a few of the unique luminance. I don't even know where to begin on a video like that. I see what you're asking and where it would be a good idea. I'll have to think about that, how to turn that into a video, because what I think are unique, I mean, there are a few like the violet gray or gray violet, I always get it backwards. That pencil is a must. There are a few of my, must-haves, so I could definitely I'll have to think about how to turn that into a video. I like the suggestion. Jess C wants to know if I did a light fast test with the Inktense pencils this summer, and if I did, what was the outcome? No, I did not, because time got away from me so fast. But the one that's hanging in a very bright but indirect sunlight room, it did not fade at all. That is behind UV glass and with a UV spray over it. My red panda has not faded one bit. So that made me pretty happy, because some of the reports I was reading from people made it sound like, oh my gosh, it's going to fade instantly. It faded when it wasn't even exposed to light, in which case it is not a light fast test. But no, I've not done the actual test yet, just because I ran out of time, and I can't believe it's already almost winter. But no. But so far that one seems okay. I still wouldn't sell them, but I sell prints. Noah wants to know if I usually shop for supplies in store or online. I usually shop online now. I used to, when I was teaching out of Hobby Lobby, it was more convenient for me to buy things there when I was teaching. So every Friday I was there picking up art supplies. But now that I'm not teaching there anymore, I ran out of time because of YouTube videos. So I don't go there that often anymore. So now most of my online shopping is, or my shopping is done online through either Dick Blick. And I was actually going to do some online shopping through Hobby Lobby. Did you know you have to pay, no matter how much I was shopping for, I was going to have to pay shipping. And the more I spent, the more I was going to have to spend, which is weird because that's not really competing against Hobby Lobby. I mean, Dick Blick or Jerry's very well. So I ended up canceling the entire order and just went to Jerry's because I was like, that was kind of weird. They were having a sale on some markers I wanted. Live streams where Lisa rambles a lot. I can't say your name because it's too small and I can't read it completely. What do the pencil percents mean on the luminance pencils? It's just how dark it is. Like what is this one? I think this one's a percentage one. These are so hard to read. That is a major complaint I have with these pencils. They are hard to read. The burnt ochre 10% is going to be a lot lighter than burnt ochre 50%. It's going to basically be the same shade, but a much darker version of that pencil. Horsey Girl, I just hit the wrong button on my computer screen. 1 second, and I will read that when it loads. We'll just sit here and look at each other awkwardly while I wait. There we go. Horsey Girl says, do you use greaseproof or baking paper instead of, or can you use greaseproof or baking paper instead of glassine? I would guess it might work. I've not used it, so I can't say. Before I started using glassine, I used tracing paper. I'm not sure how different it is. That's something definitely worth looking up though, because I bet somebody online has information on that. You know, this guy here, let's start working on him too. We'll just line that out. Trying to decide what color I want to put for my base on this next one. That is definitely not the right color. Let's use it anyway. I'm not sure why I left this out because it kind of goes with those that are in the back here. Fiddle Jewel says maybe you can do a vlog on where you get prints made. Yes, you did miss that one. I've done that one. I talk about that. You should be able to just search Lachri and art prints or something like that. It should come up. It's an older one, so there's a good reason you missed it. It wasn't recent. But the information my answer would still be the same as what I talked about in that video. Yeah, I don't know with the baking, going back to the question about baking paper instead of glassine. I know the glassine is acid free and that's a big deal. Yes, it's not going to touch your work for that long, so it's not as big of a deal as storing it. But this is stuff that's used like for galleries. They will wrap paintings in this before they wrap the packing over it to protect it. It won't stick to the painting. And it is acid free, which is a big deal. So you're not going to have yellowing and all of that. So I'm not sure, that may be part of the difference between that and the baking papers. I really have no idea what the pH and all of that is on those. And the thing is, glassine is not very expensive. So ideally, I would say just pick up some glassine. You can get a roll of it for like $12 on Amazon. And for me, on something that I'm going to spend this much time on, I'd rather be sure that this is acid-free that I'm using. Because baking paper, anytime you're using supplies that are not intended for art, they do not list things like whether or not they're acid-free. That's one of the big worries about using stuff like that. Like I have seen so many times, and actually with art teachers in high schools, I don't know what it is about high school art teachers, tell their students that they can seal their graphite work or spray their paintings before they go on to the next, or when they do the graphite drawing or charcoal drawing, spray it with hairspray before they start painting, or use that to seal their graphite drawing. The thing is, you have no idea what the pH is. That acid free, is that going to yellow over time? They're not made for that, so they're not testing for that. So it is just a bad idea. And one of my favorite things is I've seen teachers that will tell students, oh, well, I've been using this since the 50s, this one brand, and it works fine. You have no idea if they changed it, because they don't have to notify you if they change the pH, if they change different products, because it's meant for your hair, not for the artwork. So you do have to be careful when you use certain products that are intended for different purposes, because they are not meant for art. Avriella asks, what is better for portraits, luminance or polychromos? I say luminance for the skin is my preference, but when I get to the details around the eyes, then I want to switch over to my polychromos. Sarah wants to know what my favorite piece of art I have created this year. Probably the flamingo on the round canvas with the bees. That one is, I think that's my favorite. That one, and I really like the goldfish with the roses, being that I painted that one for myself. But that flamingo, he just makes me laugh every time I see him. I don't know why flamingos make me kind of giggle. Noah Spalding wants to know, how often do I use mop brushes? How many do I need for acrylics and or oils? For acrylics, two. I would say two, because if you're blending on one, especially if it's a large painting and it starts to pick up paint or where it needs to be rinsed, you need it to be perfectly dry to work, and you want to have a dry one ready to grab. If you've got two, that's generally enough. With oils, I'd say like 10. And not that you're going to use all 10 in one night, but you can't clean that and instantly go and use it, because when you do clean them off, they're going to be wet for days. With oil, I mean, that just is not going to dry when you use the paint thinner and all of that. It is going to take a very long time to dry. So you're not going to be able to use that brush for a very long time. So when you go and paint the next day, that brush is still probably not going to be ready for you. So with oils, these are really inexpensive. I may end up switching over because these do shed so bad, but with oils, they dry so slow, it doesn't really matter. I use these Royal Soft Grip brushes with oils, and I usually tell students, have at least 5 of them, but I mean, 10 is what I personally am most comfortable having available for me. Isa wants to know, have I ever used I don't know what that question is. Alexa, I'll need you to reword that, because I think that didn't come out right. Have I ever used to gone to blend? I don't know what that is. Sarah says, it is super cold in the winter where I live. I like to spray the matte varnish on my acrylic paintings and also use a fixative for charcoal pastels. No ventilation in my house. Do you have a garage? Because that's what I used to do. I would go in the garage, move the cars out, and go, actually I don't drive. I would have someone else move the cars out. But I would go in there and spray that way and kind of either wear a mask or hold my breath while I was spraying, and I would just leave them out there until I could bring them back in, because the garage shouldn't be as cold as outside. With a lot of those sprays, you do not want to be spraying them, well, definitely not indoors, but they tell you not to use it within or under a certain temperature. So that is definitely a good question. But I used to use the garage, and here I don't have a garage where I live now. I'm not sure what I would do if I needed to. Usually we've got warm days in South Texas. We'll have warm and then cold, often enough that if I had to get something sprayed, I probably could do it in between warm and cold fronts, but... C Rebel says, do you ever stare at your drawing painting so long that it starts to look bad and you just give up because it's rolling too fast? Because every time I do, is that just me? That's something I think you've got to teach yourself to stop doing. You want to see the good in what you're doing as much as the bad. It's important to see what's wrong. It's important to be able to look at it and go, these are the things that I need to change to make my work better so that I'm happier with it. I think if you think everything you do is amazing, you're not really going to progress. That's a really bad habit to get into as well. But I think that you also have to see the good in what you do and see where you're progressing. You've got to kind of teach your brain to look at things a certain way. And you can teach your brain to view anything in the world, anything. You can convince yourself, play little mind games, convince yourself to view it differently. For my grandmother's a good example of this. She has been so negative for so many years that all she sees is the negative in everything. But she's trained her brain to work that way, to only see the bad of things. And I think it goes with anything you do in life, anything that you're, playing instruments or just your view on the weather, your view on anything. I personally hate the winter, passionately hate it. And it got so bad that I was dreading it every year when it would come through. I would dread it it'd be middle of the summer and I kept having to go through my head, oh, winter's going to be here soon. And it would really bother me. I don't handle cold well. But I started convincing myself reasons why the winter's kind of cool and it doesn't bug me so much. You can start changing the way that you view things and it'll affect everything. But teaching your brain to be positive about things is a really good just lesson in general to start working on. And for the record, my grandmother is probably one of the most miserable people I have seen in my life. She is so unhappy with everything, and her life is actually very good. There's nothing major that has gone wrong in her life that she's always been very unhappy. But she's trained herself to be that way. It's really embarrassing going out to eat with her because she is so mean to waiters and waitresses, and it's one of those things where you just want to be like, stop, you cannot be that mean to people. But then it's your family and the whole thing's just awkward, so we just tip the people who have to deal with her well. Yeah, and going back to saying changing your attitude, I still don't like the winter, but I don't dread it. I don't have that nonstop negative, oh my God, it's going to be cold, so I have to not enjoy the summer because I know the cold is coming. It was ridiculous, and I realized it was ridiculous and had to start looking for the positive in things, looking for things that I liked about the winter. I actually bought myself some long sleeve dresses and that helped because I can only wear them. I really like them, but I can only wear them in the winter. So things like that. A new jacket. Saved up and got myself a jacket I really wanted that I could look forward to wearing when it got colder. Little things like that can help. Little mind games. Oh, okay. Alexa said she meant to say, have I used Goo Gone to blend? No, Goo Gone stays greasy pretty much all the time, and I do not want grease on my paper. It doesn't really ever dry right, so no, I won't use that. Mr. Man with Glass says, I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. Whenever I use oils, it takes weeks to dry. Should I be mixing something with my oils, or could I could layer faster? Well, make sure, watch my video, Intro to Oil Paints. Just do a search, Lachri and Intro to Oils. I think it's on my front page too. If you scroll down a bit on my front page of YouTube, youtube.com/Lachri. And if you add liquid, that's my fast drying medium. I work in light layers and I use liquid, and my stuff is dry to the touch overnight. So that would be a big difference. But if you're using straight oil paints, it'll take months to dry depending on how thick you have it on there. But if you can use a fast drying mixing medium, that will make a big difference. So one of the things you might notice, again, I was talking about abstract shapes on this. None of this makes a ton of sense. This doesn't look like a leaf in any stretch of the imagination. It's not at all there yet. And it will eventually when it all comes together. But you just want to trust your reference photo. Trust that, okay, I know this needs to be a little darker here, a little bit of a darkness there, and just copy what you're seeing on that reference photo. And coffee, because yay, caffeine. I didn't really drink much caffeine besides iced tea for years, and then I got a Keurig machine. It just ruined me. I'm so addicted. Now I can't stop buying Keurig K-Cups. Like every flavor possible I have to try. Well, not everyone. They're not all gluten-free. But you get the point. Now, I used to really worry about leaving white areas white anywhere I was going to want white. But because I use that mixture now that I was telling you guys about before with what is that? The colored pencil titanium white with the touch-up texture. Those two, I can come back through and get any white that I need. So I don't have to worry about that anymore. It's been one of the best colored pencil finds ever. Like, definitely on my must-have. I cannot live without this product list. I can't even imagine going back to working with colored pencils without those two items. I like seeing how many of you dislike the winters, too. Oh, we can have our own little art We Hate the Winter Club. Okay, something went wrong here. This is this. That is that one. I'm missing something in there, but I'm not sure that it really matters. I know I've got a little, we'll just add a little bit of this color. I'll fix it later. One of the nice things about drawing leaves and stuff like this is that it's forgiving. If I miss a little area, no one is ever going to know the difference. Conejo says he loves winter, but don't you live in Mexico? I don't think it gets nearly as cold there as it does in, say, Wisconsin, like a lot of our viewers are from. I don't think you've actually experienced real winter in Mexico. That's like California. I never really experienced cold weather while I lived there. I remember posting a dog show photo when I was showing studio assistant number, I think it was with studio assistant number 1 in the show ring. And I was wearing a beanie and a big jacket and a scarf. And I mean, I'm all bundled up because we were showing outdoors that day. And the photo I had posted in one of the dog forums, and you could see the sun and the palm trees behind me. And somebody came back and asked, somebody from, I think he's from Chicago, was like, how cold was it that day? I'm like, it was freezing. It was like 54 degrees. I got made fun of for a while by people who actually lived where you have winters. One of the things that I see happen a lot with newer artists when they're getting frustrated that their work is not looking realistic enough is that they're expecting it to look finished too early on. Look at how many layers this takes. And in a lot of the work that I'll see people finish and then they'll be frustrated with it, it's like there's nothing wrong with it. Your work isn't bad. It's just not finished. You're calling it done too soon. If you'll keep working on it a little bit longer, it'll make a huge, huge difference. I think that would be one of the biggest tips I would give to my younger self. When because I was there too. I was getting frustrated. Why does my work not look like I want it to? I was calling it finished too soon. I mean, okay, in part, if we remember the angel one that I talk about all the time, or always share because it's kind of funny. Sometimes my drawings just sucked and I needed to work more on that. But for the most part, I mean, my painting techniques where things weren't shaded realistically, where if they were drawn right, but they still didn't look as realistic as I wanted, it was generally because I was not spending enough time. I was calling it done too soon. And the funny thing is, another thing that I've heard from students is, well, how do you know that, like, I don't know what to do next? Keep working on it and keep experimenting. That's the big thing, is that you've got to get yourself into a mindset of experimentation. Like we were talking about with the brushes, where somebody asked, well, would this brush work for that? Well, I'm not sure, but try it and find out, because you may love it, you may hate it. You're not going to know if you don't try it and aren't willing to experiment. The artistic guy asked, do Prismacolor colored pencils from the 80s and 90s still work today? Yes, they do. I still have some of mine. Those are the ones that don't break. As often, anyway. So when you're drawing leaves, one of the colors, or many of the colors actually, that you are going to use a lot of are different golds, oranges, reds. Those are used a lot to get realistic looking leaves. Even when you look at it, the leaf, yeah, it's probably green by itself, but it's going to have a lot of these other colors in here that you want to include in order to make it look more realistic. If you guys see how the art of Joseph Fincham is, I'm throwing my pencils on the floor, how he's formatting the questions highlighted with the teal, that will make it easier for me to see them. The chat does scroll by fairly fast, so I'm not going to catch all of them, but it does make it easier for me to catch what is a question versus you guys chatting. How hard are you pressing on your pencils? Do you use a lot of pressure? No, I do not, except when I switch to white. When I use white, I will almost always use more pressure. But the rest of my pencils, no. Every once in a while, when I start getting to finer detail, like little teeny stuff, I'll start adding more pressure then. Actually, I'm going to blend this out now. But for the most part, no, I'm not pushing very hard with the pencils. So this, again, if you weren't here earlier, this has odorless mineral spirits on it. I am using Mona Lisa odorless mineral spirits. And all of the supplies that I use and recommend, I have some of them listed in the video description, but if you go to my website, there is a section, a tab that actually has my recommended supplies or the supplies that I like. So I'm kind of going in sections because I don't want to just scrub over everything because I'll lose some of that detail. And what I'm doing now is going to soften things out anyway. I'm going to come back over with detail regardless, but I don't want to go too crazy and lose all of the shape that I put in. Fiddle Joel wants to know if I hold my colored pencils different than my graphite. Not really, no. Ashley said, one of my Prismacolors split down the barrel the other day. Pencil literally fell in half. I took a picture of it to see what Prisma had to say about it. They'll replace it for you. That is one thing. I mean, any company will replace a defective product. The problem that I have, because that's where everyone's like, oh, they'll replace it. It's no big deal. Well, it is when I need that pencil and I can't use it right now and I have to stop because I don't have a replacement for that color at the moment. So, you're not out the money. They will replace it. But it's just such an inconvenience. I don't have time to wait for weeks to get that replacement, but make sure, don't let that go. They will, I know they'll replace it for you. Arena wants to know how long it takes me to finish a colored pencil piece. It depends on the size. This one's a little bit bigger. Even though I airbrushed the background, this whole section is quite large and has a lot of detail. So this one's going to take me a couple of weeks. Normally I'll have a project done in about 4 to 5 days when I work on an 11 by 14 inch, but it depends on what that 11 by 14 inch is. Tons of detail. It is going to be, it's going to take more time. Okay, so that is drying. While that dries, let's go ahead and add some detail to the branch that is above it. And actually, I think I need more gray than anything else because this part I didn't really blend, so I should be able to work on that right now. I think this was one of the hardest things for me to really get my head around is this little detail, little things. Take your time and just work on them. Just take whatever time needed to get all of those tiny little bits exactly right. So how many of you are drawing or painting right now as you watch the live stream? Joseph Fincham says, please tell me where you get your masked prints when you use it to hide your mistakes. My masked prints? Because I'm trying to paint and I made a mistake. The print hides my mistake from, huh? I guess Karaya is asking this. Please tell me where you get your masked prints. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry. I want to, but I have no idea. You'll have to reword that. Fiddle Joel wants to know how large this piece is. It is about a 16 by 20. Brandy wants to know if I work on several different pieces at once. Not usually. Usually I work on one at a time. Oh, it's cool to see how many of you. That's a lot of you guys who are painting and drawing right now. Yay! It's like our own little art club. Yes, I know, I'm a dork. That just makes me happy to know I'm basically drawing with a whole bunch of people right now. I really thought drawing or working on the live streams work because I don't have music on where I normally would or audiobook. I thought that would really bug me. It doesn't, because it's like you guys are in the room with me. Joseph Fincham says, I thought you could maybe you could figure it out. I was wrong. Well, if you can't figure it out, I'm not going to be able to figure it out. We'll just need her to reword that question because I have no idea. I promise I want to understand it. I'm not trying to be a jerk. Most of the time. Now, one of the things that I will do, while a lot of these do have some yellow on them, the ones in the back, I'm going to pull more blue in those just to push them back a little bit further, even though there's not that much blue in my reference photo. I'm going to just play on that blue tint to make them feel a little bit farther away than these larger leaves that are up front. Eddie wants to know my opinion about white gel pens mixed with Prismacolor. I would not personally do it myself. The reason for that is it's not probably going to end up so archival. That can scratch and chip off, and they're not made to go with, they're basically a water-based product that you're putting on top of a wax or an oil-based pencil. They're not made to go together, and a lot of people have problems with the archival issue long-term, or some even have problems right away. What I do recommend is what I was using here, that colored pencil. I feel like I'm advertising for them because I keep pulling it up. I should tell them, Aliona, I want to be paid. I keep telling people about your product, but I'm kidding. Don't pay me. These two here are how I get the white detail instead of a gel pen. These are archival. They are intended for colored pencil. They will stick right to it and they are not coming off. So that is what I would go with instead. Ashley wants to know if I've seen Fantastic Beasts. Not yet. I haven't had time. I really want to, though. Eric wants to know what archival means in art. It means that it's going to last long term. I mean, the how long depends, but you don't want something that's going to fade or chip or fall apart in a couple of years, especially if you're selling your artwork for a lot of money. Let's say I sell this for $1,000, $1,500. I don't know what I'm going to sell it for. But the point is, if I sell it for that and the person goes and gets it framed and the framer is like, hey, all the white just scraped off or wiped off, it didn't stick. Different gel pens will have different reactions, but they're not going to be happy with having spent as much money as they did to have something that was not archival. It didn't last. So that's just what that means, is that it's going to last long term. Now this edge here, I'm adding a bit of a shadow, but I don't want just a straight line. I'm having dark areas. Notice how I'm breaking that up, just so that I can separate that leaf from the one in the background. But again, I don't want to just make an outline on everything. Nope, still not looking for the face in the brown leaf. You have to stop. I don't want to see the face. It'll ruin it for me. One of these days it's going to show up for me and I'm going to have to change it all. I think Karaya is asking about my stencils. That I get the stencils. If that's what you mean, the stencils I get from, some are from Hobby Lobby and some are from Amazon and some are from just various websites I found on the internet. But the majority of them were from Hobby Lobby over in their home decorating department, or kind of by the craft section, not the fine arts. And then again, Amazon. Multimedia Artist says, could you do a piece of artwork from the Fantastic Beasts and where to find them, like the Thunderbird, once you see the movie? I don't think I will. And the reason for that, Game of Thrones has always encouraged fan art. They have, or had, I don't know if they still do, a Tumblr account where they encouraged it. And I know I'm talking about two separate companies, but I'm going somewhere with this. They have always encouraged it. You know, you're not selling your artwork, you're just doing it as being a fan. Every time you do fan art, you technically are in violation of that company's copyright. But sometimes that company encourages you to do so because it's advertising for them. There was recently an article where they went after a girl I just read this today. It was in one of our colored pencil groups. They went after a 13-year-old girl who had posted artwork on Redbubble, which is a print site. and it used the term winter is coming. They sent the cease and desist, you have to remove it or you can get sued. You're opening yourself up for lawsuit, which they are within their right if it is an actual violation of copyright. The thing is, two problems with that, actually. I'm still going somewhere with this, that it would technically be a trademark violation, not a copyright as far as I'm aware, because you can't copyright a phrase, you can trademark it, but then it only is within your field. So with this television, movies, TV, that sort, television, TV, same thing. You get the point. But within film, basically, this girl in her artwork, it had nothing to do with Game of Thrones. It was just a random girl and she was doing a seasonal thing. So, fall is coming, winter is coming, whatever. And Game of Thrones went after her for that. And I'm kind of like, well, if you guys have always encouraged fan art, now granted, it is on a print site. However, they're being that picky now that you're going after a trademark. I don't know if they've trademarked it. I have no idea. If they've not trademarked it, they really have no grounds to stand on. But most people don't have the money to fight a copyright thing like that, and so they would just remove it. And I'm like, if they're going to start getting picky about that sort of thing, are they going to start going after artists who have made videos of their work and posted them online, like mine? I may end up having to pull mine from YouTube. I don't know. We'll see if they end up contacting anybody about that. But the problem this then brings up is, well, if they've always encouraged fan art and they now are saying no, again, I don't know if it's because it was a print site, but technically they weren't violating copyright anyway, so I don't know where this was going. But if they are going to go after people now on something that they've encouraged before, I'm not sure I'll do much in the way of fan art in the future besides Warcraft stuff. I know they're fans of fan art, but even then, I mean, it's worth me doing because I want to own it for myself. I need my Murloc painting. But it does concern me enough that is it worth my time then to do a fan art piece if companies that previously were saying, yeah, do fan art, are now like, no, just kidding, we're going to threaten to sue you if you don't take it down. Now, there may be more to that story that we don't know from the news article. It is very, very likely. It seemed like the dad was trying to get attention for his daughter in a kind of weird way, but it makes you think, is it even worth the fun of doing it unless it's something that I personally really want to own, like the Murloc painting. I really want that Murloc painting. So if I can't have a video of that up, I'm not out anything. I still have my Murloc. But as far as that movie goes, no, I probably won't. So kind of scrolling back up because I missed some questions. Because I talked for like an hour just now. Will I show my reference photo at some point? Yes, and the photographer, Christine, who is amazing, has given you guys permission to draw these hummingbirds, so I will, when this video goes up on Wednesday, I will also include a link to where you can download the hummingbirds to draw yourself. Okay, I think I'm caught up now, so we'll scroll back down to the questions. Sarah Makes Art says, Lisa, the hairspray thing makes me wonder if high school art teachers really just have no idea what really works for projects or if they don't care. Either way, they can hurt a lot of people. No, you're absolutely right. I don't know. I mean, I was not one high school art teacher that I had, he seemed fairly knowledgeable. But the other one, she just wanted to go home. So I don't think she would have given she just wanted everything to be done. It's like, yeah, it works. I don't care if it's archival. I think that they were looking at it as people who are taking this class or taking art classes in school, they're not going to be professional artists, so it doesn't really know. I don't know. I think there's a hole in this leaf somewhere. Let's see, we've got a dark bit here, and that's either a brown spot or a hole. I'm not sure. We'll just put it in there, and now it looks like two eyes. Sarah says, my college art professor forbade the use of blending stumps with graphite. I've seen, it's so funny. I'm not sure why there are some artists who act like the blending stumps or using those blending tools is the worst thing in the world that you can do. Here's the thing with those, because they'll say it's better if you don't use them. yes and no. They save time. Why would I do something that was going to take so much time without, if I use that, it'll save like a significant amount of time. But I think one of the things that happens is that people over depend on them. And I know I did for a very long time. I look back at work even not that long ago where I'm like, wow, I should have sharpened this up with the pencils. I left it too soft with the blending stump. I think that the blending stump is a great tool, but it does have its limitations. And I think that a lot of people overdo it and think that they need to blend everything. So it's valuable, I think, to learn how to work in graphite without them. But then once I still would go back to using the blending stumps as needed based on what was going to work best for the techniques you're currently doing. But that's something that I've heard a lot. Lucas wants me to do a comparison between Spectrum Noir colored pencils and Polychromos, maybe a review of the Winsor & Newton watercolor markers. That would be awesome. The Spectrum Noir, I believe, are not a series. I could be wrong. I may be mixing them up with another one, but I'd have to look into. They may be okay. I know a lot of the pencils that people are asking me to review are basically children's toys. I'm like, I'm not going to do a colored pencil. Takes too long for me to demo something with a children's what is the equivalent of a children's toy. And the Spectrum Noir I could be wrong on. I don't remember. I'm mixing up my brands right now. I know the Marco Refine ones or whatever people ask me all the time. If a whole set of colored pencil costs you $20, it's probably crap. Just gonna throw that out there. I think it's a pretty good guideline. Quality colored pencils cost more than that. So I don't have any interest in reviewing the Marco Refine ones. I probably will just because I'm asked so often, and if I do the video, then no one will ask anymore. But for those of you who are waiting in the meantime, they're not going to be there. You don't get a good set of colored pencils for that little. So at this point, I'm getting further into my layers and I am adding a little bit more pressure, so I am starting to burnish a bit. This whole area just kind of mixes together. It's hard to tell what's what here. So now I'm going to start pulling in a little bit more of the bluish green colors. Again, just to kind of push this guy back, or all of these back a bit. This one's actually a warm blue, so that's not really what's going to happen with that one there. I get a lot of requests to make art tutorials. I'm a calligrapher, but I worry that my techniques are not by the book. Have you ever felt this way about sharing techniques? Absolutely. And one of the reasons that I waited when I first started doing videos, if you will go back and look at them, they were just the speed paintings. That's all I ever did. The first tutorial was on how to paint bubbles, and I was afraid to post that because people are jerks on the internet. We all know that. And I was like, people are going to tell me I'm doing it wrong. They don't like my techniques, even though my techniques, I mean, that's how I paint them. So I was so afraid of people bashing me and jumping all over me saying that I was doing it wrong, because I've been on art forums. At the time, forums were a bigger deal than they are now. Now people don't use them so much. But I was genuinely like, oh my gosh, people are going to be mean. It's not even worth doing. So I didn't do them. And that was a bad idea, because as it turns out, while you will have jerks on YouTube, the majority of commenters, the majority of people are grateful for anything you show them how to do. It's art. There's no one right or wrong way to do things. And anybody who tries to tell you that there is very misguided. They don't understand how art is. I mean, there's a difference between telling someone, okay, what you're doing is not archival, this isn't going to last, and nope, you can't do it that way, you can't layer that way. If you like your end result, why are my eyes itchy? If you like your end result, then it's fine. Don't worry. You've got to get over being afraid of this is the right way, this is the wrong way. If what you do looks cool and you like the effects you're getting, show people how to do it. No matter what you do, you could do it by the book. You could do it absolutely perfectly. And you're going to have somebody come on there and tell you it's wrong for whatever reason. Like the blending stuff with graphite. That's kind of my attitude with those. You have teachers who are like, no, you can't do them. And they are really, like the one person said, very adamant that this is the wrong way to work in graphite. No, it's art. There's lots of different ways. That's not making the artwork any less archival. So in that case, what difference does it make? So no, do it. I would strongly recommend do the tutorials anyway. Every single person out there at some point has this, they call it imposter syndrome, where it's like, I'm not qualified to do this. I'm not qualified. I mean, even me, I didn't go to art school. I don't know the right way to do things. I've researched as far as making things archival and stuff. When I started, I didn't have a clue, but you just have to get started with it. Someone says, I have very poor eyesight. Me too, apparently, because I can't read your name from this distance. I have very poor eyesight, which I suspect is making it challenging for me to learn to see what is needed. Colors, it scrolled by. Layers for blending. Do you have any tips to help? Glasses? I mean, I have poor eyesight too, so I wear glasses, and I have a feeling that is not the answer you're looking for, but I really don't. I mean, I'm not going to give you medical advice. That is basically what you want to go for there. But if you can see fine detail, then you may want to do some stuff that is more impressionistic. I mean, when I paint, when I do impressionism, I'm kind of squinting all the time anyway to cause bad vision, where you want to hit your lights and your darks, but you're not worrying about fine detail. So that's probably a good place to start. Try doing stuff like that. Or glasses. Beck wants to know if I have any surreal paintings coming up. She loves my surreal work. I was actually, when I woke up from my old lady nap earlier, I have an idea for something and I got really excited about it and was tempted to start it tonight. I probably won't because I have to record the next week's videos tonight, but I do. It will be in acrylics, and I'm still kind of working through the ideas. I'm not going to tell you all about it yet in case I end up changing my mind and not doing it at all, but I do. I definitely have some surreal stuff coming up. Paul says, person with poor eyesight, you can get special goggles to wear right over your head. Search the internet. Well, there you go. Somebody who's more helpful than I am. So this pencil I'm pushing a little bit harder. This is the Derwent Drawing Chinese White. Some of this will look a lot better once I come through and paint on what I need. Sarah wants to know if I have any more oil paintings coming up. Definitely. I want to do some oil portraits. I haven't done any of those in a really long time. I have lots of plans. The problem is coming up with the time to do them. Hannah says, I am an amateur artist and I haven't developed a style yet. Do you have any tips on how to develop your own style? You keep painting and then you paint some more, or draw, whichever, and then you do it some more and you rinse and repeat, and your style will come over time. You can't force your style. You can't just worry about creating a style. It's going to come on its own, and that is only going to happen if you paint and draw more. Where's my sharpener? There it is. Did the autofocus change for you guys? Did you guys notice any difference? Linda wants to know why I use more than one white. My luminance is going to be a harder white, whereas my Chinese white, my Derwent Drawing Chinese White, that one is a softer pencil, and I'm not going to get as fine of lines, but it is more opaque than the luminance. So it just depends on what I need for any given area. just wants to know my verdict on the Canson Me-Tense paper. I liked it. I actually really did like that paper quite a bit, and I will use it again in the future. I really liked the light blue one, much more so than the black. I don't know if I'll use the black too much more, but the white, or I'm sorry, the light blue, that paper I liked a lot. Okay, you guys may have to remind me in the future on if I forget, if it starts going out of focus, to change whatever I changed in OBS, because I think it resets itself every time I reset it, those type of changes. So just remind me, and I'll try to do the same thing I did this time to get it to stay in focus. I'm glad you guys bugged me about that, because I know that was one of the things. Maybe it was just the software that this webcam came with. That was the only real complaint people had, is that there was no way to turn off autofocus. So it must have just been a program difference. Ellie wants to know if it took me long to develop my style and figure out what I like. Yeah, kind of. I mean, I wasn't thinking about it. I didn't even think about my style. I just painted what I wanted to paint until about, oh gosh, how long ago was it? It was pretty much when I started doing YouTube. So I don't know, 5 years ago. So I don't know how long I've been doing this. I don't pay attention. But I remember teaching, I've told this story several times, so I'm sorry for those of you who have already heard it. But I was teaching at one of those, it was called Let's Art Party. You drank, or the students would come and drink wine or whatever they brought with them while they painted. And, oh, this leaf is supposed to go down here. I have to fix this. And I was getting set up for class, because we always had time before while setting it up. And I was talking to the person who was my assistant that day, and I was complaining that I just was frustrated that I couldn't come up with a style. I wanted to have a style, and I felt like I was at a point in my career where that's something I should have had. Why did I not have this right now? You know, I basically whined about it for a week. And she finally, I think she got irritated with me. She finally looks at me and she's like, what are you talking about? You have a style. Like, she goes, I can always pick out, like, when your stuff comes up on Facebook, I always know which ones were yours. Huh? Really? And I'm thinking, okay, she just wants me to shut up because I ramble. I can't stand silence. So if she won't talk, I'll talk. I don't care. You guys are shocked, I know. But I went home that night after she said that, and I was really thinking about what she said. I didn't necessarily agree with it yet, but I really spent some time thinking about that. I go home that night, and I'm looking around my room, and I'm looking through my paintings, and I'm like, okay, that one has light bulbs and space. This one has light bulbs and butterflies. This one has butterflies and a giraffe. And you could see where every single thing was somewhat connected to the next. Well, no, the giraffe one is not the same as the space one. They both have elements that are similar. And so that's where that style started to come in. And when I paint with acrylics, I think I have a more definite style. With colored pencils, I just go for more realism. But acrylics, I have a tendency to do certain types of brush strokes repeatedly. So you're going to have some variation there. But no, I mean, that was probably 15 years into my having decided to be a professional artist. It finally clicked. Hey, I do have a style, and I didn't even realize it. And then I finally stopped freaking out about it. Okay, this is trying to look at this and figure out what leaf goes where, and I think that I need to stop and just copy what I see shape-wise, because I can't tell what's a leaf and a random shadow at this point. Maybe if I enlarge it. No, that didn't help. These leaves were starting to die, and I doubt they're still there. It's been a couple weeks, so I'm sure they're not there. But I doubt they were there for more than a couple days after I took the photos. But they were starting to die, and you could see where they were kind of crinkling and bending weird. And it definitely, when looking at these, it's like, that doesn't look right. I don't understand what this connects to. There's a whole bunch of clumps, and there were different leaves like this. I don't know if that's a part of this, if it was a smaller version of these leaves, or if it was one that fell from the trees below, above in the forest. So I don't know. So I'm pushing a lot harder. You can probably hear it on the microphone a bit in this area that I'm covering up where I went a bit too light. I want to pull this area down. That looks better. One of the things that I did earlier on too, which I'm sure impacted my style greatly, was I was obsessed with Christian Lassen. And when I first started painting and drawing, I didn't, like anybody else, I didn't understand copyright. And this was really before the internet. I didn't have internet actually when I first started painting and drawing. I had books, I had old calendars of Christian Lassen, and I would just copy stuff out of there. I'm going to take this fish from this one, I'm going to take this dolphin from this one, and I'm going to take, I mean, I was basically full on violation of copyright. I didn't know that at the time though. And that really impacted, or had a huge impact on my style, because I was copying his style while I was nowhere near as good as him at the time. By the time I got to where I was at the level of anyone wanting to buy my work, I stopped doing that. But that was how I learned a lot. And I think when you find an artist where you're just patterning your work, patterning, I don't know. I've had problems with that word before. I don't know if it's an actual word or if I'm just making something up. But when you're copying, you know, basing your work off another artist's style, then you're going to have a tendency for your styles, I think, to lean towards theirs. And it's funny because I don't think any of us necessarily know our style. We don't recognize it ourselves as much as outsiders do. So that's something that you can do too, is ask a friend or a family member who will be honest with you and see if they recognize a style in yours, or is there an element that you have a tendency to do? Because style isn't necessarily just the way that you move your pencil. It can be the type of things that you like to draw, the things that you're interested in. That also has a big impact on everything. So like with me, I like light bulbs and goldfish, and I haven't done light bulbs in a while. Butterflies, looking around my room, wildlife, obviously, bubbles, orcas. I mean, these certain things, dandelions I love, and I rotate those elements in and out of most of my paintings. So I think that that definitely brings bees. I think that that alone, the elements I include in my paintings, have a large impact on style. It's not just how you move your brush, how you do different things like that. Now, a lot of this red that I'm pulling in here is not in my reference photo, not this severely, but I love how it looks. It's not really red. It's actually, what is this color? Burnt ochre, just burnt ochre, not one of the percentages. That one is, it makes them look so much realistic. I pulled this color into a lot, and I'm using the luminance. There is a very similar color with polychromos. I have it out somewhere. I'm using the luminance in this case because I need it to be more opaque to cover up some of my other colors, whereas the polychromos is going to be my more translucent and not show up as well. It's better for my initial layers. Did I see Melissa Legate? What is it, Legates? Am I saying that wrong in chat? Oh, I think I hit a button and now it's going back to the wrong page, so I missed it. If that is who I saw, Melissa, you may want to share a link to your blog. If you guys who are in chat want to click that real quick, she's got a pretty cool blog with art stuff and different articles. You may want to check it out. If you guys missed me saying this earlier, the amazing photographer Christine who took these has given you guys permission to draw these same hummingbirds, and I will provide the reference photos for you next week. On next Wednesday's video, I'll have a link of where you can download these. So if you wanted to include these hummingbirds in one of your own pieces, that would be something you could do. So here I'm switching back to my my polychromos because look how much easier it is for me to get the finer detail. And it's not that luminance can't get fine detail, I just find it easier to switch to my polychromos in that case. Zachary wants to know, what results would Prismacolors give for this type of drawing? It can be done. It's harder. They're waxier. You've got to be a lot more careful about your layering because they are so waxy. They're definitely not my choice, and they're going to break every 5 minutes. But it can be. I've seen amazing, amazing work done with Prismacolor. They don't work well for my technique. I don't like them. But I've also seen great stuff done with them. So it can be done. It's just going to be a little bit harder for you. By a little bit, I mean a lot. Deb says, will you do a portrait of graphite in a live stream one day? Probably. Eventually. I don't have any planned soon, though. See, I'm pulling this shadow under this branch. I don't want this branch to be one color all the way through. It will not look realistic. So I'm pulling that in little areas, getting that shadow. And it's not just an outline either. It fades. Kaneho has asked for me to please ban Kaneho. He's being rude with all of us. Wow, that's a new one. I mean, not the being rude, just asking to have himself banned. Sarah wants to know, how do I have so much patience to finish a piece like this? I don't know. I mean, my whole life, I don't know if it has anything to do with my health. I didn't really feel well, so I've never had that impulse. Let's go outside and ride bikes. I mean, okay, I did that some as a kid too, but for the most part, I like to sit still by myself in my own little world, block everybody out, and just draw. This goes a lot faster when I'm not sitting here talking with everybody. This is probably twice as slow as it should be, at least. So it's not as bad as it seems, but yeah, I've just always liked to sit still and work on something like this nonstop. I do the same thing when I used to do web design with HTML. That, if any of you used to build websites that way, no, it is really, really time consuming. And I would just obsess over it. I'm very obsessive. That helps too. I just want to, if I like something or I'm working on something, it's like, this is all I can focus on right now. I'm never going to stop and do something else. It's actually a problem because I won't want to stop and eat. I just want to keep working on whatever I'm working on. But I don't know. I don't know how much of it is a personality type of just being obsessive and wanting to work on whatever I'm working on. I don't have a good answer for you there. Audiobooks help though. If I can get lost in a story, because there are times where I'm real antsy and I don't want to do this, audiobooks will help me to sit still longer. Or sometimes I'll listen to podcasts. Actually, where? I don't think that's the pencil I wanted either. Ooh, that might work. Yeah, that works. Sarah says that she has a problem sitting still. She'll do one thing for 5 minutes and then want to do something else. The audiobooks, if you can get yourself to listen to those and kind of get lost in it. One of the things that I used to do with the audiobooks is I'd get into a story that I really liked, and I wouldn't allow myself to listen to that story unless I was working, or unless I was cleaning or working out or doing something I really wasn't in the mood to do. It's kind of my reward. But because I'd want to listen to that book, so that was actually one way I used to get myself to walk a lot farther than I normally would, because I wanted to keep listening to the story. And that's what it started with the audiobooks. I didn't ever use them for art to begin with. It was just for when I'd go walking or working out. But that made a big, big difference for me. Mostly just anytime I was being antsy. Because sometimes it is, even with me and being as obsessive as I am, it's hard for me to get in the mood and want to just sit down and paint. And I've got to watch for different things like, okay, there's white, I needed it lighter here and here. I don't want to just fill the whole thing in. You want to pay attention to stuff like that. All of these little details, they all add up to something that looks realistic. All of these color shifts. They may not seem that important, like it's a green leaf, I'm just going to color it in green. Yeah, but it won't look that realistic. I mean, all of these little detail type things. If you look at this one, there's so much little stuff going on in there. And yeah, from a distance, it's just kind of a one shade with a slight shadow there, leaf. But when you get up close to it, if you want it to look realistic, I had to pay attention to where it faded from one green to the next. Palette Junkie wants to know if I have any troubles with people interrupting me. How do I deal with distractions? Well, okay, normally I work with, this is actually kind of makes me a little embarrassed. I normally work when no one's here, so it's not a big deal. I like to work when my husband's at work, so there aren't distractions. But when he comes in and I'm working, he basically gets a dirty look. And I don't realize I'm doing it. I used to get myself in trouble as a kid all the time. Apparently, I have way too expressive of a face, and everyone knows what I'm thinking. He always like, fine, I'll leave the room now. And I'm like, I wasn't meaning to be rude, but it's just kind of like, what do you want? So yeah, that's kind of how I deal with that. I think it's very clear that I don't want to be disturbed when I get all weird. So my husband doesn't bother normally. He knows me pretty well. But I know occasionally he gets irritated with me that I'm, not wanting to hear his story about wrestling or I don't know, whatever he was talking about. It's like, or like movie trailers. He'll come in and tell me about movies or something on TV he was watching, and it's like, I'm making a mess. This does not interest me right now. I'm focused on art. And so he just kind of gets are you done yet? Or I ignore him completely. Again, that makes me sound like a horrible person, but I get so caught up in what I'm doing. It's like, I know you're talking, but I'm not really listening because I'm working right now. So that's how I deal with it. I'm a terrible person. JPC13 Art says, do you know of any way I can live stream from my phone? I'm currently live streaming on Instagram. Whoops. But I want to move over to YouTube for it. I don't know. I don't know the technical stuff with it. I have to thank Aaron Retton, and I know I'm saying that wrong. He's a digital artist who I did a live stream with a few months ago. I think it was in September. If you go back and look at those videos, you'll find him. But he is the one who taught me about OBS and helped me to get it set up. I don't know much about live streaming at this point. I was like, here's something I don't know how to do. Let's do it anyway. Kind of my whole art career, actually. Chris wants to know where I get my inspiration. I don't know. I mean, I feel if I'm not painting and drawing on a regular daily basis, I start to get really depressed. I'm not a depressed, I mean, that's not something I really struggle with. So, that definitely says something about the importance of art for me. But I have to paint and draw, so that's just kind of a must for me. And I'll get random ideas that make me get excited. So it's not like I have to go look for inspiration to get myself to go sit at the easel, but just different things that I think are beautiful, that are pretty, that I'm like, I want to recreate that. Or in this case, like these leaves, I saw that and was like, I want to draw that, but I want mine to be different. In this case, I wanted hummingbirds on mine. So I'll find different things that inspire will inspire me are just based on that I found beauty in them. And in this case, like even the dead leaf, I just thought it was beautiful and it inspired, like I have to paint that leaf. I considered when I was taking the reference photo, moving it off, and I was like, no, that leaf is just pretty. Plus I don't touch things in nature because I don't know what is, I've been warned by a neighbor that there is poison oak out there. I don't know what's poison oak. Any of this could be. I have no idea. I kind of wanted to move it with my hand so I could get the better photo and the better lighting earlier, but I was terrified of either being bitten by bugs. Chiggers and I do not get along well. I had an incident with those when I first moved to Texas, but those take months to stop itching, by the way. So I don't touch, yeah, I wasn't going to touch it. But point is, I thought everything in it was so pretty, the way the light hit it, even the dead leaves, the dying berries. I don't know, that inspired me to draw, so it could be anything. Hoofbeat says, how do you stay, okay, that's the one I just saw, I think. Or I answered one close enough. Well, this was a little different. How do you stay motivated and not bored when drawing? When you do it all the time. I switch mediums. I constantly am switching mediums. I mean, one week it's colored pencil, or it might be colored pencil with powder blender, and then the next week it's colored pencil with odorless mineral spirits like this. I'm constantly switching back and forth. Sometimes it's acrylic painting. If I did the same medium every week, I would get burnt out. I have no doubt about that, because even when I work for 2 weeks on this, like this is a longer project, towards the end I'm like, okay, I'm not doing colored pencil again for at least 2 weeks. I need to give myself that bit of a break. So switching mediums for me has been a big way to keep me not getting burnt out. The other way is I used to get burnt, like super burnt out from art right around Christmas time, because I'd always have so many Christmas gifts to get done. Doing the starving artist thing for so long, I didn't have money to go buy gifts, so I would do artwork for my friends and family. And it was really time consuming. So by the time December 25th, because I would work right up until Christmas, I did not want to touch art again for weeks. Now I just have such a set schedule. I know these are the days that I'm going to draw. I have to, because it's my job. And so it's kind of like, I know artists will think that they want this to be their job, but they don't want to do it all the time. Think about any job. If you work at Walmart, you don't want to go to work, but you do want your check, so you go do it anyway. So even with me, if I'm not in the mood to paint or draw and I need to do it anyway, I have to sit down and do it. I just have to. That's, you know, your job. So when you become a professional artist, it's no longer about only drawing or painting because you're motivated or in the mood. It's about doing it because you want to pay your bills. I mean, it makes me happy too. I make it sound like it's totally dry. It's not. I love painting and drawing, but I mean, it gets it to where it's a little bit different when that's how you are paying bills. Chris wants to know if I would take reference photos from fans for other art projects. This one actually is Christine, who took the reference photos of the hummingbirds. She is somebody who watches the videos, and that's so yeah, I mean, I've used her photos a few times, but only with permission. I wouldn't like steal it because I saw it off their website or something like that. I don't think that's what you meant, but thought I'd throw that out there. Desiree says, for some reason, Patreon took me off her list and won't let her watch my videos despite still taking my $9 a month. Email me later. We're going to have to figure that out. There's something weird going on there. I need to find out what's going on. We will talk to Patreon. That is not normal. It's probably something simple. Sometimes if you just clear your browser history and then re-log into the site, that'll fix it. But if it's still taking your payment, then it still thinks you're one of my patrons. So we will definitely get that taken care of. You're the first person I've heard of that happening to, so I don't know what the solution is, but we will find it. Coffee. And for those who are going to say, oh, you need to back off the caffeine because you talk too fast. Does not matter if I have caffeine in my system. I always talk fast. That's just how I talk. It was funny when I was going through initially the diagnosis. with fibromyalgia, one of the problems that I had with the doctor one of the doctors I was seeing, he would not take me seriously when I was trying to explain, I am so tired all the time. Like I can hardly function. I can't get out of bed. This is really a problem. But he didn't take me seriously at all because I talk fast, and people associate talking fast with having energy. They're not even remotely associated with each other. But that was kind of random story for you there. But the caffeine has nothing to do with how fast I talk. I went for a long time with no caffeine at all. So this area, I need to start lightening up a lot. And I'm going to try it first with the pencil. And I don't think that's going to lighten it up enough. So we're going to go ahead and start adding some of the details with that mixture of titanium white and touch-up texture. Oh, there's my cup. I have to wipe some of that off. It's got some leftovers from last night. Tomorrow's cleaning day, so I guess it's okay if it ends up all over my carpet. I'll just vacuum it up tomorrow. Ooh, really making a mess. I'm wiping out the dried portions from last night there, and it's all flaky. So what I'm doing to make this mixture, so you can see, I'm just tapping some of this titanium white powder into the cup. You don't need very much. I've probably put too much. Desiree says, I have no idea what happened. It signed me out. And email me. We'll take care of this later. I can't look right now, but we'll see what's going on. Heidi says, lots of YouTubers talk fast. I'm totally used to it. That's the funny thing, though. When people don't talk fast, people complain about that too. It's actually, I can't listen to somebody who speaks slowly. It kind of drives me crazy. So, I don't know. You may be able to see it on this one. I'm just going to pour a little bit of this. Yeah, I have to make sure I shake it really well. And I'm going to pour just a few little drops. Maybe a little bit more. Into that, I may have to add more. We will see. And I'm going to take a paintbrush. This is one I talked about in my newsletter. If you're not already signed up, you should sign up for that. It's in my video description there. But my newsletter, I talked about this last week. This brush, or yesterday, it is a script liner from Hobby Lobby that I love. It is a synthetic hog hair number 2. Eddie wants to know, I know this is personal, but what kind of job did you have before making art as a living? And how was it possible for you to switch over to it? I worked at pet stores first, and then I worked at an animal hospital for several years. And it just got to the point where I was teaching enough with the classes at Michael's that I was making enough between that and selling paintings on eBay before the market crashed. I was doing enough that it made up the difference from working at an animal hospital. Carly says the blender needed sealed paper, if I remember right. Does the titanium white? No, this does not need to be on sanded or gessoed paper. It works on anything. So let's see. This needs to stand out a bit more from here. A little bit on this guy. I don't want to just put a white line. And that's one thing that, one mistake I used to make even myself all the time. I would be like, okay, this needs a white highlight. And I just do a straight line coming down. It won't look realistic. That white is only hitting bits here and there. And if I go too white on this, it doesn't matter. I can tone it down with colored pencil after, because this is adding texture to my paper. Colored pencil will stick to it really well. So even if I had an area where I just couldn't get more colored pencil, it's not that I wanted it white, I could just paint the touch-up texture by itself on that area. It adds the texture to that portion, and then I'm able to continue layering colored pencil on top of it. I don't know how I lived without these products, seriously. Like, it has made such a difference in my artwork and what I'm able to accomplish. And this product, even if you're outside of the US, you can still order it from her website at brushandpencil.com. You just have to email her and let her know, and they'll give you a shipping thing. I know it costs a lot to ship out of states. So I apologize for that. Buy a few, because it is really worth having. So this I'm going to have to fade out with colored pencil on top of it. I'm just going to smudge that a bit with my finger. It is non-toxic, so it doesn't matter if I touch it with my hands. JPC13 Art says, how can I get comfortable talking on camera? I know it comes with practice, but are there any tips you can give? Vlog a lot. Just make videos talking on camera a lot. You can make videos just talking to your friends and family. Make videos talking to the camera that you don't ever upload. Just tell a story to your video camera, record it, and you can upload it, but keep it private just so that you can kind of look back and see where you need improvement. But that was the biggest thing for me. I had a really hard time. I was so awkward. For some reason, that camera turned on, and it was like, I don't know. It was kind of like those photos. If you guys remember the old Friends episodes when Chandler would get his photo taken and he'd make a face, that was kind of like me on camera, where it was like instant awkward. I don't know what my deal was, but I just could not. I was so uncomfortable. And that just came from more videos and more videos. And the big change came when I started adding a second video a week, because before I was only talking on camera long enough to say, this is, I'm working in this medium. This is what I'm doing. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye. And I wasn't learning enough from that. When I started doing the critiques and I started talking on camera even more, that's when I started seeing a change where I was acting more like myself and not somebody very, very having sticks put where they don't belong. That's pretty much the thing. There's no other way around that. You just have to practice. But you can do it without having people watch if it makes you uncomfortable. Just upload them, keep it unlisted, and use it for yourself. Tanya says, is there a difference between the Nature Core paintboards and the mixed media paintboards? Yes, the Nature Core ones, it's a recycled product or it's biodegradable. I forget the details. There is a difference. It's let's see, and the mixed media. Some of the mixed media are also Nature Core though, so you just have to look at what the label is on those. Actually talks to Fredericks today. They're going to give me some more of the Convexo canvases soon, so you'll have more of those videos with the round. I love doing videos on the round canvases. I think that's what I want my Murloc to be painted on. Hoofbeat says, I've been thinking of making a Patreon, but I don't know how it works. Do you have a following? That would be my first question. Do you have ideally a YouTube channel where you've already built up subscribers, where people know who you are? Because it doesn't matter how awesome you are if no one knows you exist yet. So a lot of times people just need to back up a little bit and work on building that following first. That's my first tip if you're going to start Patreon. I've seen where people will do it backwards, where they kind of, do Patreon at the same time as they start YouTube. I wouldn't, mostly because Patreon's a lot of work. It takes so much work for getting all the Patreon rewards. Like for me, I offer reference photos for people that they can use in their own artwork. I have to go take those reference photos. I've got the postcards. I mean, there's a lot of work involved in it. And if you don't have a lot of people who sign up because they don't know who you are yet, then it's a lot of work without much. You're not making enough to make it really worth the time. So my first thing would be to make sure you've got people who know who you are. And it has nothing to do with how great your artwork is. Your artwork can be absolutely amazing, but if no one knows that yet, then it's not going to do you much good. So with that though, when you go to patreon.com, they make it really easy to set up an account. But again, if you don't have the following yet, I would hold off and work on building that first. Tanya says, I want to see this Murloc painting. I used to be such a WoW addict. I have a Booty Bay painting already on my channel if you look that up, but I haven't done the Murloc one yet. I want to do a realistic looking Murloc. I'm kind of excited about it. Palette Junkie says, I wanted to roll a Murloc. Yes, I'm crazy. Did you know you can get a Murloc pet? There's a hidden cave in Borean Tundra. Look up the video on YouTube. There is a Murloc, white little baby Murloc that will just go be your pet, and you don't have to do anything but go there and get him. And nobody seems to know about it. And he's been there for over a year, and yet somehow no one knew. And he's adorable. I named mine Noodles. You're shocked. I know. Actually, you guys may not realize I used to name everything a variation of Noodles. It would be like Noodle Microphone would have been his name. I wanted to name my studio assistants that, but my husband vetoed it. So that's starting to get there. I've still got to brighten this up a little so that when I come back through with the browns, they show up more. Now this one here, this needed a lot more white on my edges, but I couldn't do it yet because this wasn't drawn in. Now I can come back and focus a little bit more, just kind of dot some of these to make him stand out more. Marlene wants to know where I get the white powder titanium and touch-up texture. I've got a link in the video description, but it's from brushandpencil.com. JP Woody wants to know, oh, I'm getting emails. I should probably turn the volume off on that because that's an annoying sound. Let's see. I just lost the question. Oh, JP Woody 76 says, have you ever done any white on black pencil art? White colored pencils on black paper. The effect can be stunning. I asked because Derwent is now selling heavyweight 200. Oh, cool. I would actually like to try that paper from Derwent. I might have to ask them for some. I've done the Tiger, which was in colored pencil on the black paper. But that's all. I've done some in the past where I used white charcoal. I'm trying to think. I mean, I've been doing art for a long time and I used to experiment more when I was younger. I did all kinds of different things. So I can't say that I've never done it, but not in a very long time if I did. I don't remember half the stuff I created. Every once in a while, I'll see a photo or see something that I painted back even 10 years ago. And it's like, I really don't remember doing that, even though my name is on it. So I don't remember. Ferret Art Studios wants to know what the video editing software I use is. Is there a cheap solution to be able to edit videos like I do? I use what is it? It is Cyberlink Power Director 12, and you can get that one because it's the older version for like $30, $35 on Amazon. It is not expensive, and it works really well for what I need it to do. I have some complaints about it, but overall, it's been a really good program. There's some redraw lag and a few little annoying things, but mostly it's good. And my friend Kendra is offering to send me pictures of where her husband just cut off part of his finger, asking if I'm afraid of blood. Thanks, Kendra. If you're watching this, I've got texts coming in. Then no, I don't need to see that. Being that I worked at the animal hospital, I'm used to seeing injuries and, watching surgeries and stuff. That was what I did. But people, I can't handle it with people. People injuries freak me out. Dominique said, I'm just making it look more like a face. What are you talking about? It's not a face. I cannot see a face. No, there's no face. For those of you who are not sure what I'm talking about, in the comments, actually for a couple of days now, somebody and social media too, you guys have been pointing out that you're seeing a face in this brown leaf, and I just don't see it. I kind of don't want to, though. So you can see I'm kind of dotting, getting little details here just with these little dots. Now the face looks like Santa. Now, see, I think you guys are just screwing with me now. There's no face. Now, I don't want to add too much detail to these leaves back here because it's going to make them look like they're too far forward. I want them to look like they're in the distance, so I'm just having a hint, and I will tone down what's already there or what I've done with the white because that definitely pulls it forward. I will be toning that down by adding color on top of that when it dries. Okay, so this was an area that I had off a bit. I need a definite line, the second definite line, and that would be it, I think. I'm just going to put white over all of this and then tone it down because this was a whole area I went way too dark too early. So that will solve the problem. Again, I'll just go over it with pencils. It's not going to stay white right there. Oh, I love this stuff. It just makes it so that I can fix anything that I totally screw up. Now, I'm just going to rinse this with water, and I'll rinse it in the sink better later, but we'll just put a little bit of water in my bottle cap. Yeah, and drink some while I'm at it. And I'm just going to rinse that brush. It just rinses with water. You don't really need soap or anything. I tried rinsing it with paint thinner once. That did not go well. This is water soluble. It is not. I would have thought ink or the odorless mineral spirits would have worked, and it didn't. It kind of hardened it and made some not pleasant results. So yeah, don't recommend that. Okay. Dominique says the brown spot on the left is the eye with the eyebrow and the shading on the bottom. Brown spot on the left. No, I'm still not seeing it. I remember when I was younger, I was painting a mermaid on a rock coming out of the water. And my dad comes in and was like, wow, that's really cool. You know what would look really good there? I mean, my mom looked at him and we're like, what? He goes, a mermaid. And we thought he was just being, like, thought he was being funny. No, he just did not see that it was a mermaid, which says something about my skills. But I mean, even though it wasn't the best mermaid, it was clear it was a mermaid. I mean, it was kind of a cartoony mermaid, but a mermaid just the same. But he came in and he thought it was a whale or something. I don't know. I don't know. I've never known of a whale with curly hair, but okay. See if this is, I've got to wait for this to dry all the way. It's not quite there before I can start layering color over it. Well, all three of my favorite friends have texted me during this live stream, so I think I covered it all now. I'd expect a call from my mom, but I think she's asleep right now, so. It's like friends and family sense when you're doing something else. There's a very specific pencil I'm looking for, and I don't know where it is. Oh, there it is. JPC13 Art says he will outline the face in Photoshop and DM it to me to prove we're not crazy. There is a face. Okay, do that. Part of me wants to see it and part of me doesn't, because then that's all I'm going to see. We'll see. This one, oops, that is definitely not the color I wanted for that section. Glad I stopped. Okay, there is, what's I looking for? Oh, a tan color. I should have a decent tannish brown in, nope. No, but I do like that color. We'll leave him out. Sort of, but still not the color I'm looking for. Or maybe this guy and this guy. Use a combination of these three. Okay, that's a good one. So you can see I'm just experimenting. It's like, oh, is that color going to work? Nope, try again. I don't spend a whole lot of time trying to figure out exactly what it's going to be. I try it. If it doesn't work, try something else. Susan says, do Prismacolor pencils ever go bad? I found some, and the art materials must be 8 years old. Yeah, they're fine. They should not, you shouldn't have a problem. I've got some in my set that are that old and they're fine. They're actually better because the new ones are so bad. Although 8 years ago, I'm trying to remember when they started getting to where they were bad or having quality control issues. I don't remember when that started. It may have been longer than 8 years ago. But I've got some that are from when I was in high school, so it's a long time ago. A long time. So, and those are still fine. Definitely need more of that reddish, orangey, whatever color here. Pull that guy in. And then fade it down where I've got the white there. Now, see how I can go over it with a pencil? So while it was white, it isn't white. The pencil sticks to it just fine. So I can get now that more neutral tone that I was looking for. How do I organize pencils in the pastel boxes? By brand. I have one box for Prismas, which pretty much never sees the light of day. I have one for Luminance and one for Polychromos, and then by color within those boxes. So this is another area. I don't want to leave it white, so I'm just going over it with the color I really wanted it to be, and problem solved. I was sitting there fighting and trying to build color, and I wasn't getting what I wanted. All I had to do was cover it with that white mixture, and now it's pretty much what I needed it to be. Love that stuff. Okay, I have to look now. We'll go ahead and we're almost at 10, so I'm going to put the pencils down for now. And let's see, JPC13 Art says that he DM'd me on Instagram. Let's see if I can remember how to find the DMs because I never use those. We're going to see if there's actually a face or if you guys are just crazy. I'm leaning towards crazy. There's the DM box. That's not a face. No. Okay, I don't feel like I need to fix that. It still doesn't look like a face. You just drew a face in there. Okay, it kind of looks like an eye. Here, I'll fix that. Let's tone this down a little. I don't even think it'll fix it. Better? No, it still doesn't look like a face to me, though. That artistic guy says, when you draw out a piece of art before coloring it, do you freehand the initial drawing or do you grid, etc.? Usually I trace it. I go through with Photoshop, get it lined up how I wanted, like I took the photos here that I wanted, and then I traced it on this one. Sometimes I'll freehand it though. I mean, there's cases where I'll trace the outline of the leaf, but then I'll go through and draw all the detail of the berries and everything else myself. It just depends on what's easier. Like in the berries, the case of the actual berries, a lot of those are freehanded because it would take longer to trace than it would for me to just draw a bunch of circles as I needed. So, or just look at the reference photo. Sometimes I use a projector. Sometimes I freehand. Largely depends on what mood I'm in, and sometimes it's going to be easier for me to freehand something than it is to trace it just because of the size that I'm working on. There's so many factors involved, but a lot of it too will be how fast I want to work on something. How much time do I have? Let's move this out of the way since I'm not working on this anymore. There are lots and lots of things that will dictate how I do it. I never use the grid though. I hate the grid method and I don't want to say that like, I don't think you guys should use it. I just don't like it for myself. I find it to be more difficult than freehanding it. Every time I've tried to use the grid method, it ended badly. I erased it and freehanded it and got better results. So that's just me and how my brain works. But so, I mean, it's totally okay for you guys to use that, but that's not a method that I ever use. Someone said the face maybe looks like the old black and white Elephant Man movie. Still not seeing it. How would I suggest tracing, or how would I suggest tracing and transferring an image onto thicker paper? If it's too thick, then I would switch over to a projector. I think that's easier. But even with the 300-pound watercolor paper by Fabriano, that one, which is super thick, that one I can still turn up the brightness on my, I forgot the word, I'm getting tired. The brightness on my monitor, I've been able to turn that up enough that I can see through the paper. I just have to turn off all the other lights in the room, make sure everything else is really dark, and I can see enough to at least see my outlines. I may not see all the little details, but I can freehand those. So that may be a case where it's easier for me to freehand something than to trace it, or use a projector. You can use tracing and transfer paper. The problem is with that, when you get into that with colored pencil, those transfer papers, I've yet to find one that didn't leave marks too heavy. So it's not a method that I personally ever use anymore. I've done it a couple of times, and I just don't really like the results of tracing and transfer paper for colored pencil. For painting, yes. Did I just say fur? Suddenly I had an accent. For painting, yes, I like the tracing and transfer paper then. But for colored pencil, those transfer papers, like I said, even the graphite ones, they're too heavy. The lines don't erase all the way, so they're not my favorite way to go. Saskia says, I just started using colored pencil this year and would like to know with, scrolling, what are you signing your work and your colored pencils? Your true inspiration, and I admire your work. Thank you. I sometimes use that mixture that I just painted the detail with. I'll sign it by painting my name on. Sometimes I will use a brush or a pencil. It depends on what it is. On this one, the bottom corners of this piece are, actually turn that camera off. The bottom corners of this piece are so dark that a white pencil would probably show up well. So that I'll probably be okay with. But there have been times where I just couldn't get it to show up. And so sometimes if I kind of erase the bit, if the pencil is just on too thick and it's not taking additional layers before I was able to paint on the white, before I found this product, I would take an eraser and erase it so that it would kind of rough up the paper and then just sign with a dark pencil. Well, depending on what color. Okay, we are at 10:03, so we are done for the night, and I have to go put all this away and record. It's a whole different camera setup, unfortunately. Go record videos for next week. So thank you guys so much for joining. Again, thank you so much to the moderators, Valerie and Dead Jester or Joseph Fincham. They have their links to their channels. One has a painting channel, one has a word burning channel. They are here on YouTube, so definitely check them out as a huge thank you to us for moderating for us. And one more question from Crowstar. When you blend with paint thinner, how much of a space should you, it's scrolling. Should you cover on your canvas? I get about a 3-inch and it seems not to blend anymore. It depends on how much paint thinner and what type of brush you're using as to how much usage or how much mileage each loading of the brush will get. There's too many factors to really be able to answer that. Just experiment with it. If you need more, add more. It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm not allowed to add more paint thinner because I shouldn't be able to at this point. I mean, add more as you need to, but there's no formula there. But again, thank you so much for everybody joining me. And I'm sure we'll see each other next week. I'm not sure what next week's project is yet. I'll be posting on social media, so you just keep an eye on that. Maybe marker. We'll see. I don't know. But thanks again. And now I have the awkward pause at the end where I go and try to stop the streaming. There we go. Okay, bye guys.